title girl. Like to live up to. But I asked her if she would come up and introduce our speaker.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Isn't the meal awesome? Well, yes, that is a very long title, but many of you may know me because I've just been around a long time as part of the Dallas-Fort Worth family. And I've been a part of FPW for a long time, and it's an honor to stand here today in a different role and different capacity. Many of you will know me from serving in my position as a senior pastor, businesswoman, author, speaker, and also having been a speaker here at this incredible event. But today I stand here on behalf of Genesis, and you know, let me just share from my heart if I can. About a year and a half ago, after partnering with Genesis for a few years, which was very personal to me, and a lot of people didn't know it, I sat back and I watched a position that they couldn't fill as a consultant with the organization. And I kept feeling the tug to do something, but like many of you, my schedule was super busy, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it until one day the Lord said, you need to move. So I sent this incredible woman an email. We set up the time to talk, and the first thing that she said to me is, how in the world would you ever have time to do something like this? And I looked at her and I believe I said, well, Jan, this is personal to me. You know, I was one of the fortunate ones that made it out. And I think that I can make an impact in our faith community to be able to bridge partnership in an arena where it needs to exist, because the truth of the matter is that in the faith community, it's still something we don't really understand. We're not trained or equipped properly, and we need to make a difference, and so that's why I'm here. So I've had the privilege now to work with this incredible person who I'm so happy. I think we're from the same cut, maybe different mamas and daddies, but we're from the same cut, and we have the same amount of energy. And but who you're going to hear today is a person that is so excited and passionate about what she does, which is why I know that the moment that we met and we sat and we talked, both of our babies leaped, because it helps when you are passionate about what you believe in, and so you give of yourself tirelessly. So today, she's no novice, no stranger to the community either. For nearly 30 years, she has been an activist in efforts to end violence against women. And when I say she is an activist, spend 30 minutes with her, and you will hear her talk about the work that she does. And before you know it, you'll be partnering too. And as the CEO, what she does is she oversees the internal and external operations, as well as funding and community education. And so under her leadership, Genesis has grown from a 7-room emergency shelter to a full-service response for survivors of domestic violence, and it's maintained its unique status as one of the few victim services programs that accomplishes sustainability. Now listen to this, without government funding. I think we can clap right there. Without government funding. She's also recognized as an expert on domestic violence and conducts all trainings and workshops and seminars all over the United States. She works in tandem in partnership with the police department here, the FBI, and probably those across the country. And one of the most incredible things that I don't hear talked about much, but if you are in any way a person who works in a field that needs to know about this, there's the most incredible conference that she's the co-founder of, the annual International Conference on Crimes Against Women, which I had my first opportunity to attend last year, and I was just amazed. 4,000 to 5,000 people from every state in some countries come in, and it's whole conversations. I say that because I know that many of you work in the sex crimes and or healing areas and arenas, and there's actually a conference for us to be a part of so that we can learn more and grow more and be better skilled at our craft. But I'll tell you, you won't be disappointed today. Even in the booklet, there's more information on her. She's got all kind of awards, but what you're going to hear today is a woman who is called to this, who's passionate about this, and who gives tirelessly of herself. So, without further ado, let's receive Miss Jan Langbein.
Thank you, my friend. That's awesome. That's great. Oh my gosh, I feel like passing the collection plate right now. Dr. Hornbuckle set me up. What a great, yeah, right? My tip jar, no government funds. That's why my tip jar is up here. I work for free, right? Hey, I am so glad to be here, and it is such an honor when Dr. Cynthia Mickens-Ross called and said, would you please be the speaker? I've only been to this once before, and it was when my friend Dr. Bailey, I call her Robinson, Reverend Kokisha Bailey Robinson was the speaker, and I thought, no way am I following her. No way am I following her. My first entree to Reverend Robinson over here, we have every year our First Ladies Bruncheon. Genesis hosts a beautiful event at the Below Mansion, and we recognize folks who are in the faith communities who are doing wonderful ministries, and we partner with them, and it's a great thing. Well, she was our first speaker. She comes up, and of course, I'm the hostess. I'm trying to be nice to our wonderful speaker, and I get up, and I'm a white preacher's daughter, by the way. I'm white, and my daddy was white. I'm a white preacher's daughter, which the point is, when she was finished talking, when she was finished speaking, I walked up to the podium to shake her hand and say thank you. Well, she was finished speaking, but she wasn't finishing her praise. She was doing, the Spirit had filled her up, and she was doing a spirit dance that I'd never seen before. She had an entourage come. They're lifting up her hair. They are fanning her, and I thought, I've been doing this 30 years, and not one person has ever fanned my hair. So I'm telling you what, I have learned from you, I have loved being around you, and you are an inspiration to me. I just love the way you say things, you know? I mean, you are just something else. So to be here in your shadow is a great honor for me. And of course, Dr. Ross, I have to tell you, Dr. Mickens-Ross is incredible. What Methodist Charlton has done in that community since she has been involved in that is just mind-boggling. It's an important community. It's an important medical...
Can you start over and can
Yeah. I'm being taped. She told me. Yeah, I'm being taped. Am I getting my $100 when I'm through here today? Okay. All right. So far, so good. No, she is an inspiration to that medical community, and I understand that other of the Methodist entities are trying to replicate you, which is not easy to do, but thank you for inviting me here today, and the leadership and vision you have for this organization is just incredible. And of course, what an honor to get to work with Dr. Renee Fowler Hornbuckle. This is a woman of God. She was that first lady sitting on that pew, experiencing this kind of violence, and she has turned this around and making it better, making this world a better place in which to live, and it's an honor to work with you. And my new best friend today is Mama T. Oh my God. So I saw her, and I don't want to talk about her hair, okay? She says she has a new do. In the Bible, it says that white hair is a crown of splendor. So I am hanging on to that as tightly as I can. So thank you all for having me. And speaking of in the Bible, in Psalms, ladies, we read that it is not my, in Psalms, we read, it's not my enemy who reviles me, then I could bear it. It's not my adversary who deals insolently with me, then I could hide. It is you, my equal, my constant companion, with whom I have walked in God's house. Ladies, so it was 2,000 years ago, and so it is today. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women in the United States. Every 9 seconds in this country, every 9 seconds, a woman is assaulted by someone who tells her he loves her, by someone who tells her it's her fault, and by someone who tries to tell the rest of us it's none of your business. It's none of your business. Well, we are here today to say something else, that it is our business, and that we are going to do something about this every 9 seconds. Think about that. In the 2 hours that we come here in our beautiful dresses, in this beautiful venue, in this wonderful meal, in this praise, in this worship, over 600 moms and sisters and daughters and best friends will be assaulted in their own homes. By the nature of their gender, we are actually in 9 times greater danger in our own homes than we are out on the streets. Now, there are men who are battered by women, by same gender partners, but most often we think of women who are battered by men. But as men, the men in our lives and cannot just stand by quietly. It's the silence that's killing us. We need to have men to be part of this solution. The good guys need to stand up and say, if it's not okay in my house, it shouldn't be okay with me if it's in your house. And so what we need is the men to get involved because they are impacted, because this impacts their mothers and their daughters and their sisters. Violent abuse destroys families. And then actually passes that violence on to that next generation. Children in these homes watch and listen as their moms are injured and hurt in their own homes. For them, their nightmares begin long before they ever go to sleep. If you just look at the numbers of children in the city of Dallas, the studies say that 15% of all children in classrooms in Dallas Independent School District are living in a violent home. Another 15% have lived in it in that school year. 30% of the children who go to school with our children are living in violence and know more about it than I do. What does that mean when somebody bumps into them in the hall, or your daughter begins to date the cute guy and the captain of the football team? It doesn't matter where you live or what we do. We all have to be part of this solution. As many as 4 million women suffer in silence in our country. The Center for Disease Control has a violence epidemiology unit that tells us more women will present to the emergency rooms of our area hospitals as a direct result of family violence than all of us who go as a result of rapes and car wrecks and muggings combined. Now, I don't think they walk in there and say, I'm here because he hit me. They say, what? You my medical people? I fell. I walked into a door. I have migraine headaches. I have trouble with my pregnancies. These ladies are merely the symptoms. The illness is the violence that is perpetrated against us in our own homes. And yet nobody ever tells. Nobody asks me, am I safe? Nobody says, I'm concerned for you. Nobody, when I go to my doctor, does he ask me, he asks me everything else. Why are you 10 pounds heavier? Do you smoke? Are you having safe sex? But does he ask me, are you safe in your own home? And yet this is the leading cause of injury to women in the United States. So why do you think we don't tell? Why do you think we don't talk about this? Let's look at the parable of the Good Samaritan, and maybe that would shed some insight as to why we are the way we are as a society. You all know the story. The man was injured. He was by the side of the road. There was a priest that walked by. There was a Levite that walked by. This is what Methodist preachers' daughters do. We just get the gist of the story. Right? I know some of you all, Mama T could quote it word for word, but I'm saying, you get the idea, right? The priest walked by. I don't know what a Levite was, but he passed on by as well. And the person by the side of the road was clearly injured. He had not merely fallen off his donkey. He was clearly in need. Now, the Samaritan was an outcast, and I was trying to think, what would be an analogy today? Is this a homeless person? Is this somebody who we would be scared of, maybe didn't speak our language, from another country? The Samaritan didn't stop to think about anything. He just did what he could with what he had. Now that's what we're going to talk about today, is doing what you can with what you have. Why did they pass by? Why did those other two pass by? Which was absolutely in contradiction of the hospitality code of that day. Supposedly, if you saw someone that needed your help, you would stop and do something about it. Well, you know what? Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they were afraid. They didn't know if the assailant was still perhaps in the... Think about this. What if a car is broken down on the I-35 bridge into downtown Dallas? We're not going to stop. It's not safe for us to stop. So maybe that's what they were thinking. That maybe the assailant was still in the vicinity. If they stopped and helped, would they be in danger from themselves? Maybe they weren't prepared. Maybe that priest never got a class in seminary on what to do with a person by the side of the road. Maybe he wouldn't know what to do. No one had taught him about faith or his responsibility or the abuse. Perhaps they didn't know what resources. Okay, what if I stop? I don't know if there's a hospital in the area. I don't know that Genesis Women... How would I get in touch with Genesis Women's Shelter if I stop that woman and ask her, are you okay? Maybe they didn't know the resources and they felt isolated and thought, well, gosh, how much time late from getting home from work anyway. I'm supposed to go by the grocery store and get a gallon of milk, and I don't have time for this. And things that we have all felt, ladies. Are we going to be able to see this through? Don't you think, though? Let me ask you this. Do you wonder? I do. Do you wonder if just by chance that those people who passed that person by, did they maybe just blame the victim just a little bit? Did they maybe say, you know what was he doing riding his donkey by himself at this time of night? What is the matter with her so that she dressed that way? Or what's wrong that she doesn't leave him? Or don't we just kind of blame the victim with our questions and not realize that it is not the victim's fault, that it is the perpetrator's fault? But again, the Samaritan did just what he could. So I guess I ask you, what can we do? Do we not look at the issue of domestic violence today? Are we afraid, or that if we enter in, we'll insult somebody, or we might get hurt? Are we worried that maybe we're not prepared, or we don't know the resources? You'll know them today. You got a brochure for Genesis Women's Shelter, one call, that's all you got to do. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm just asking you to say, I want to help you. I want to make this world a better place, and here's a phone number that can make a difference. So I want to tell you my story about kind of how I got here, if I can, and it's sort of my story about passing that stranger in the ditch and walking by, because I'm not from abuse, and I didn't think about it much. And if I did think about it, I thought, well, surely this only happens to somebody who doesn't look like me or live near me, whatever that may be and wherever that may be. Doesn't look like me or live near me or go to school where I went to school or go to work where I go to work. I never really gave it much thought because to my knowledge at that time, it had not impacted my life. So I want to tell you about how I got completely immersed in this issue. I'm a member of the Junior League of Dallas, and I don't know if you know that organization, but it's a group of women who, do I have any Junior Leaguers in here? Yes. And so it's an organization of women who volunteer their time and their talents and make this world a better place in which to live. So I have this theory about Junior League. There are major leaguers and there are minor leaguers, and I was most definitely in the minor leagues. I sat in the back row. I went to my minimum number of meetings. I made my grocery list during those meetings, and I thought, I'm just going to get in here and get on out of here, right? And so it was time and I would hear these amazing women up at the front of the meeting saying, this volunteerism can change your life and make your community safer and better, and I thought, yeah, that may be fine, but I'm not one of those people. I'm not somebody who has those kinds of talents. I can't speak in front of a group. I could never ask anybody for money. I'm like, look at me now, girls. Seriously, right? But I thought I was somebody. I could never accomplish what some of these big major leaguers had accomplished, not realizing that all anybody's asking you to do is take what piece you have and put that on the shoulder. I'm standing on somebody else's shoulders. And you add your piece, and then you add your piece, and all of a sudden you look up and we have done something great, right? So anyway, I'm sitting there on the back row, and it was about time to sign up for the next year's placement. And I had a terrible placement the year before, and I thought, well, this year I'm going to look for the easy way out, right? The easy way out. Well, I got a little nugget for you. Looking for the easy way out makes God laugh, okay? There is no such thing. But I thought I had found it. I found a placement. You didn't have to go or get training. You could wear your jeans if you went. And I thought, hot dog, that's for me, right? So I get in my car. I'm racing down Lover's Lane. This is before it was all online. I'm racing down Lover's Lane to get it all signed up before my girlfriends filled it up, and I had realized I had broken one of my little Junior League acrylic fingernails, right? So I want to do good in the community, but I think my nails ought to look nice. So I stop. This is a true story. My hand got on this. I stop at a little salon right there on Lover's Lane, and I was like, come on, hurry, because I didn't want, again, the easy way out to fill up before I got there. And so I end up sitting down, waiting for the lady, and just about that time a magazine slides in my lap. And on the cover it says, every 9 seconds in this country a woman is assaulted. Over here it said 1 out of every 3 women will know domestic violence on an ongoing basis. Over here, the leading cause of injury to women in the United States. And I thought, there is no way. I went on to read this article about 2 professional people. She was a dentist and he was a lawyer, or vice versa, and he beat her, ladies. He beat her with a tire tool because dinner was late. And I was offended. I was just offended. I had no idea. I had passed that stranger by the side of the road. I don't know how many times, and had never done a thing about it. And so anyway, I did get my nails fixed. But by the time I got to Junior League headquarters, I had forgotten all about the easy way out. I opened the book to violence intervention. I shut my eyes and put my finger down on Genesis Women's Shelter. Now, if you don't think that's a God thing, you're not paying attention, which I wasn't, and so off I go, right? I got down there and I thought somehow these women would look differently than I do. I thought their children would not look like my children, and what I found, ladies, was victims of domestic violence look like you and they look like me. Battered women at Genesis are tall and short and fat and thin and black and white and Hispanic. The only common thread I can find among all women who come to Genesis is that they were in a relationship with an abusive partner. That's the only common thread that I can find. They come from all walks of life, and so do their abusers. I thought somehow maybe, men who did this to people, these horrific things to people, would have two heads and bags. But they wear judges' robes and lab coats and overalls and preachers' robes. And so it has been such an education for me. I wanted them to somehow look differently than I do. But anyway, that's where I went. I got down there. I was all fired up. I was a volunteer for about 3 years. I rocked babies. I made Kool-Aid. I did those little pieces. I stood on somebody else's shoulders, and I did what I could with what I had, right? Well, I was sitting at a board meeting about 3 years later, and this amazing man of medicine, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Charles Sprague, one of the buildings at Parkland is named after him. Amazing man. I know right where he is, too, by the way. He's not lost. We know right where he is. But anyway, he said at a board meeting, he said, we need new leadership. She needs to be able to work the crowd and raise money. Out of my mouth shoots, oh my gosh, I think that's me. I'm looking around to see who said it. Guys, I didn't have a resume. I had never looked at a financial statement. I had never hired. I had never fired. And he's like, well, are you kidding? And I said, well, I'm not kidding. Are you kidding? And I'm like, I'm not kidding. And I thought, I gotta be kidding. I mean, seriously, somebody's gotta be kidding here. I went home and my husband, and I did not work outside the home, and he likes 3 squares a day and dinner at 6 and that kind of thing. And so I said, well, honey, I got an announcement for you. Not only is dinner going to be late, but you're going to be fixing it, right? I think he just sat there and still's like, well, are you kidding? I mean, we're all just kind of flabbergasted by this. Well, I did what I could. I took that job. I took my Junior League note cards because I figured I'd be saying thank you to a lot of people. I took my monogram note cards from Junior League, and I went into that office and I pulled all the financial statements together and I shut the door and I thought, oh, okay, so the red numbers are bad and the black ones are really good. Okay, financial, I got this, right? You don't want red numbers on your bank account there. And so then I just put one foot in front of the other. I didn't have a grand plan. I didn't have a strategic plan. I just thought, well, how do moms go to work? How do they get a job or go to work if they don't have child care? So we put child care on site. How about when her husband comes after her children in court when he can no longer hit her anymore? We put a lawyer on site. We put a school on site because these babies were being snatched out of their school. We went on to put counseling and advocacy and a full service response, not with a grand plan. Again, I just did what I could with what I had. I surrounded myself, and this is my best management advice I could ever give a young professional. Surround yourself with the smartest people you can hire. They make you look really good. We see sometimes managers or leaders who want people who are not as smart as they are, thinking that's going to make them look better. Not me. Get the best people you possibly can. Case in point, Dr. Hornbuckle. Anyway, so because Genesis is a nonprofit, I want to tell you a story. Nonprofit, we count on the community. I count on my tip jar. Saying that again. I count on my benefit thrift store. So where's my new friend that's going to take some things on her way down? We just talked about that earlier. There you are. Cleaned out her closet this morning, so thank you very much. Everybody, if you can't write a check, clean out your closet, clean out your husband's closet, get your things on down to our benefit thrift store. Our ladies get to shop at no cost. It's a wonderful place. But anyway, so we rely on the community. Nobody loves donated sanitary pads better than I do, right? Anything you imagine that you need at your house, we need at ours times 40 people every single night, right? So I get this call one day, and this man says, I want to know more about Genesis. Oh, I love these calls. I did about 20 minutes on how we were founded and what we do and our impact on the community and on the issue and our education and my board and, on my black numbers and my, hiring smart people. And he said at the end of this conversation, he said, well, let me ask you this. He said, I'd like to make a donation. Oh, my favorite words. I'd like to make a donation, right? So, I'm thinking big check. I'd been on the phone. I had been reeling this guy in, right? And he says, well, the thing is that it's a donation pallets of canned food. And I thought, oh, nuts. Not what I was hoping for, but still, canned food is good. We make food boxes and we feed people at the shelter every night and on. And I was like, oh, I was disappointed. I'm going to tell you the truth. But then I said, absolutely, we'd love to have your help. And then he asked me the question. You ready for this one? He says, do battered women eat Spam? He said, do battered women eat Spam? I'm like, mister, I don't even know what Spam is. I'm thinking in my head, what's Spam made of? I mean, I told you I was a white preacher's daughter. We didn't eat Spam in my house. Now, I've done some research on this, and I find you can slice it, you can fry it. People enjoy Spam with breakfast. You can eat it as a sandwich for dinner, whatever. That's fine. But what this conversation told me was he didn't get it. Even after 20 minutes of my best stuff, he just thinks, well, if you eat Spam, you'll be battered, or battered women will eat any. I didn't understand what his thought was, and I realized we are asking the wrong questions. We are absolutely asking the wrong questions. You do not get it. Why do you think that a group of people would eat any one thing? We need to just stop asking questions like, does she eat Spam? Or why doesn't she just get out? Why didn't she just leave? Why did she stay there? Because boy, if that had been me, why didn't she tell somebody? And these questions go on. Instead of saying, why does he do it? What kind of coward beats his wife? What kind of monster beats the mother of his children? But that's not what we're asking. You tell me how in this day and age we're still asking the question, well, why didn't she just get out? How is it we still do not understand this? Why did it take, I have other questions for you too while we're at this. Why did it take 40 women to accuse Bill Cosby before he was convicted?
Right.
Not one, not 10, 40 women before he was convicted of sexual, premeditated, drug-facilitated sexual assault. You tell me how an Olympics doctor, a team, a coach, a doctor could ruin the lives of 250 young athletes, ruin their lives before somebody stopped him. You tell me how this man, Jeffrey Epstein, could traffic these young girls. He is a pedophile. He is a human trafficker. And the story when he died was, how did he commit suicide in jail, and did somebody do that to him? You think I care how that happened to him? What about young girls who got off a plane on an island? How about celebrities who stepped off that plane with them? Somebody saw those girls and nobody said anything. I want to tell you something, and this is usually where I lose some of my audience. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It doesn't matter, and there should be no divide on some of these issues like trafficking and domestic violence. But ladies, I have to tell you, in the past 3 years at least, we have received a presidential seal of approval on how to treat women. We cannot tolerate being called names. We cannot tolerate being called dogs and ugly and pigs, and we will never move the needle until we stand together and say enough is enough about the way you talk to me. I will not. And again, I'm not talking politics or economy or immigration. I'm not. I'm talking about the fact that until we stand up, you cannot gaslight me into thinking that if you grab some of my private parts, that's a joke, that's locker room talk, because it is absolutely not a talk. I want to share a story with you about a woman walking down the riverside, and it was a beautiful day, and she's walking down, and she looks out and she sees in the river some splashing around, right? And she realizes it's a baby drowning out there. And then another one pops up, and another one pops up. She drops her purse and she kicks off her shoes and she swims out and grabs up as many of these babies as she can, and she brings them back to the riverside to resuscitate them. About that time, a second woman walks down the riverside, and the first one says, thank God you're here. There are babies that are drowning. I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. I'm trying to resuscitate, I'm trying to shelter these babies, but I need your help. The second one drops her purse, kicks off her shoes. She swims out, only she didn't come back. The first one yells out there, hey, Heather, bring me those babies. I'm trying to take care of as many babies as I can. She says, you know what, I'm going to stay out here, and I'm going to teach babies how to swim in a violent world, in a violent river. river. About that time, a third woman walks down the riverside, and the first one says, "Thank God you're here. Babies are drowning everywhere. Women are being assaulted everywhere. I need your help." And the first, I said, "I'm sheltering or resuscitating as fast as I can. She's teaching babies how to swim in a violent world. I need your help." Only the third woman turns around and walks back up the riverside. The first one yells up to her, "How can you do this? If you know this, if you know that this is the leading cause of injury to women in the United States, how can you turn your back and walk away?" And the third woman said, "I am not walking away from this. I'm going to go upriver and see who throws babies in the water in the first place." Who throws babies in the water in the first place? Those are the questions, ladies, that we need to be asking every single day, and not just once, but again and again and again. I think we all have gifts and talents that we don't realize that we have. I want to introduce you to three people. One is a woman named Sarah Nadel. She's a private plane pilot who took her avocation, her passion, and started a nonprofit called Families to Freedom. She will literally fly one of our families to a contiguous state, out of state, to safety at her cost. She will transport somebody in a car through volunteers or in her own car to a bus station or an airport. She is getting Families to Freedom. There's a man named Ken Clark who owns an aquarium cleaning service. Now that may not sound like anything that you might need, but I'm telling you, we had a big tank donated, but Ken came with the tank, and he comes once a week and he feeds our fish, and he takes away the dead fish that we forgot to feed there in the lobby. And again, you may think that's not a talent, that's not a gift, but I want to tell you about a little boy who is too absolutely terrified to go into a play therapy room and close the door with a stranger. Because what happened when his uncle did that to him is an atrocity against humanity. And so this little boy will stand at the door of the therapy office, he'll run in and he'll grab guns and knives and plastic toy weapons, and he'll stuff his pants with them, and then he runs down the hall back to the lobby while everybody is armed, right? He's safe. He arms the therapist, and he goes, and you know where he stands? By the fish tank. And he tells Nemo the horrible things that his daddy has done. He tells Nemo that's where he feels safe, and that's the gift. He doesn't even know it. That's what Ken Clark does for us. I want to tell you about Michelle DeLeon. She's an esthetician here in Dallas. And she gave her services to a friend of mine, Maria. You met Maria at the First Ladies Bruncheon. Her husband had stabbed her 37 times. 37 times. He broke off knives in her body. He sexually assaulted her. He threw bricks at her and left her for dead. With her expertise, Michelle DeLeon erased the scars on my friend's body, off her face, off her breasts, and gave her the confidence to step out of the light, out of the darkness and into the light, into the life she so deserves. And that's the gifts that I ask you. So my question to you this afternoon, what's in your can of Spam? What do you have in there that you may not think, I didn't know I had what I had, but you've got something in your can of Spam that can do something for someone else. In the Gospel of Luke, in the chapter 13, there's a passage that says, "Behold, there was a woman who for 18 years had been bent over by her infirmity." For 18 years had been bent over by her infirmity, and when Jesus saw her, he called her and he made her straight. He said, "Woman, thou art loosed from thy infirmity." But of course, as good Christians, we all stood around and started talking about, well, you're not supposed to do that in church, and you're not supposed to do that on the Sabbath, and you're not supposed to, we had to have committee meetings over that or whatever. And at the end of this, Jesus just looked at them and he called them hypocrites. And he said, "Should not this daughter of Abraham, who Satan has bound for 18 years, be released from bondage on this Sabbath day?" So ladies, I ask you, if not us, then whom? If not here, then where? If not now, then when are we going to do something about it? Make no mistake, every one of us in this room has been bent over sometime in our life by sadness, by death, by loss, by fear, by disappointment, by betrayal. And some may step back and say, well, that's just a private matter. It's a woman's issue. It's not my problem. I heard a great analogy the other day. It said, if we're in a boat together, and I think we are, we're all in this boat together, and if there is a hole in that boat, I got to tell you, it doesn't matter if it's at my end of the boat or your end of the boat, right? It doesn't matter where you live or where you worship or what the color of your skin is or what the color of my skin is. If we're in a boat together and there's a hole in it, we're all going down. So we all need to work on this issue. If there are women hurt anywhere, then we are hurt as well. So we must roll up our sleeves. We must be part of the solution. We need to support our shelters. We need to let our voices and our votes be heard. Anybody here ever called a legislative official on the issue of violence against us? The Congress, the Senate, has held hostage the Violence Against Women Act for about 4 years now because they want to chit-chat about immigration or LGBTQ issues, and shelters are closing. Courts don't have the money they need. We need to call our 2 state senators today and say, why have you not gotten on board with a reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act? I hope all of you call. I've got their numbers. You call me, I'll get you Ted Cruz and John Cornyn's number. And you call them and let them know I'm a constituent, I'm a voter, and you know what? We need to protect women. I saw an article yesterday, the chief of police, I think his name is Alvarez or something, in Houston, and he is calling for the reauthorization of Violence Against Women Act, which takes guns out of the hands of abusers. He said, women are dying. You're not for guns, you're for murder if you do not stand up and get guns out of the hands of abusers. It's against state and federal law for someone convicted of a domestic violence crime to have them, and nobody's asking. They're leaving that stranger by the side of the ditch and they're walking by. We need to be part, and if we will do it, if we'll just do what we can, we will give hope, we will light a candle of education, a light of empowerment, a candle that literally informs those who are living in darkness that there is help and there is hope. I also want to, I was asking for money again from somebody the other day, and I went to a breakfast meeting where I was so like, oh, they're not going to give it to me, I'm so sad, I'm so depressed, and I want to just leave with you, Galatians 6:9, it said, do not grow weary in doing good. This was the blessing of that morning. I got the money. I've got to tell you, it turned me around. I went, I asked, I didn't grow weary, and I asked, and I got the money that day at lunch. Anyway, do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season, I couldn't read my own writing, in due season, see, I'm telling you, we will reap if we do not give up. We cannot give up, ladies. We have, by the sheer numbers of people in this room, some of you know what I'm talking about. You were that little girl who grew up in that house. You were that person who watched as mom was terrified and dad was terrifying. We must all be a part of this. About 10 years ago, there was a movie called The Emperor's Club starring actor Kevin Kline. He portrayed a classics literature professor in a private boys' school. His name was Mr. William Hundred. And one of his classes, he tells about the reign of a king in the kingdom of Elamites, which was in 1500 BC. It was a king named Shotruk Hahunte. He had amassed great fortunes and great lands, and yet nobody's heard about him. And the students were asking, if he was so famous, why haven't we heard a thing? And in this movie, this character says, great ambition and great conquest without great contribution is without significance. So I'm asking you today, what is your significance? Where are we going from here? You know, Dallas is such a great city, but you know what? We can never have a great bridge if in fact there are men and women and children sleeping beneath it. We can never have a state-of-the-art arts district if in fact there are women and girls anywhere being sold into the degradation of the adult entertainment industry. We cannot have safe streets if we do not have safe homes. Former President George Herbert Walker Bush once said, points of light are ordinary people. He said, points of light are the soul of America. They are ordinary people who just reach out beyond themselves to the lives of those in need, bringing hope and help and friendship and care. We can give help and we can give care. And it is with that very hope and the clarity of my passion that I will continue to help create a community and help create a nation that realizes peace on earth begins at home. Amen. Thank you very much for having me today.
So,
Are you going to fan me? Are you going to fan me? Keisha, come here, fan me. I'm going to do it.
You are the daughter of a white pastor, as you say.
Yes.
Okay, so y'all don't get fans.
We don't get fans. We don't get fans.
So I'm gonna let a little bit of me rub off on you, and I want you to know that I love you. I love that you're committed and passionate to the work against domestic violence. I want you to know that you are a testimony of what God can do in just an ordinary woman, an ordinary person. And your testimony is different from my testimony, but let me tell you, domestic violence is in my history.
Gotcha.
And I want you to know that if it wasn't for the work that you do, I would have not had a place to go.
Thank you,
So,
friend.
and I'm not ashamed of that.
No, you shouldn't
Because
be.
that's my journey. And that's why I can
Yes.
say to you today that I want to get more involved
Good.
in Genesis
Good.
Women's Shelter.
Good.
I want to take what I have to make a difference in the lives of these women and their children, to change the lives of family. So thank you. And I
Thank you, my
always say,
friend.
your story is really worth $1 trillion.
But, yeah,
Don't get ahead of me.
yes, ma'am.
But FPW only has 100.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take
And
it.
we're going to give it to Genesis Women's Shelter, but we're also going to give women who are here today an opportunity to give toward this amazing work. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
telling us so much valuable information
My
today.
pleasure.
We're better
My friend.
because of you. Thank
My
you so much.
pleasure. Thank you.
Wow. It's so awesome.